Shalom, Yahweh Shem Yahshua Barakatam. This is Isupk. Started out at 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York in 1969. We're under Commanding General Yohana, here to teach the truth of the Bible that so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians are the real Israelites according to the scriptures. Today is Friday, which means that it is the Lashawan Qadash class, or the ancient Hebrew class. It's a very vital part of our culture to also come back to our language. One thing that people have to understand about this movement, so to speak, is that they call us Hebrew Israelites. Well, they wrongly call us Black Hebrew Israelites, but the truth is we're just Hebrew Israelites because Hebrew Israelites are 12 different tribes. But aside from that, the other thing that needs to be corrected is the understanding of what it means to be a Hebrew Israelite. Israelite is the nationality. Hebrew is the language. You understand? So the language of the Israelites is Hebrew, and particularly ancient Hebrew, or what is pronounced Lashawan Qadash, or what that translates to English, the holy tongue. Now, the Lashawan Qadash is the language that, again, just like y'all have seen before, in these Hebrew classes, the Lashawan Qadash is specifically designed to be as ebonic as possible, as short and to the point as possible. Because Hebrew is a language that doesn't have any vowels. What we've been doing over this past week is that we are beginning a review and a complete breakdown of Psalm chapter 83, or at least the portion of Psalm chapter 83 that we recite during our Sabbath services and our high holy days. Now, the thing that you're going to notice about Psalm chapter 83 is that as we start to write the entire prayer in the Lashawan Qadash, what you want to start getting used to seeing is the actual characters in the ancient Hebrew and then pronouncing the words in the groups that they are to match exactly with what we say when we say the prayers. And so as you start to see some of these words looking exactly like how they're supposed to look, we're also going to look and see some of the words that are in the scriptures, or at least in the interlinear version of the Bible, that's going to give us a complete, thorough understanding of what each phrase is saying. That's the very important part, because the more that we see that, the more that we read it, the more that we practice it, the more that we'll understand exactly what each word means. You understand? So that includes the vocabulary that comes from practicing. Now, we've done ba, and ga, meaning verse 1, verse 2, and verse 3. And we're going to continue and try to do a couple more verses today in this series that we now have labeled as the Lashawan Qadash, which I'm probably going to go back and rename these classes and create a playlist that's going to put them all together in order for people that are joining the channel to get a chance to see this particular breakdown in its entirety over the span of a couple of weeks or a number of weeks, and have it in our archive so that they can go back and get the entire breakdown of the whole thing. So we're going to do a review of the first 3 verses, not a complete review like we normally do when we break things down, but to more or less get the flow going and get back into the flow of reading the prayer and seeing it as we read it. Now, it's one thing to read it in the Lashawan Qadash using, the transliteration using English characters and English, writing style. But to read it in the Lashawan Qadash itself is a different challenge. And so, as a part of advancing our culture back to its original state, or back to a state where we believe to be more accurate to our original heritage, that it comes through practice, repetition, studying. There's really no getting around it. Studying is an important, essential part of what it takes to gain the knowledge, to practice that righteousness, to come back to it. You understand? So as we look into this, Shayar is the first word in Psalm chapter 83, which makes sense because the song is a song, right? Psalm 83 is, in fact, a song, a prayer. A lot of times, Hebrew Israelites, when we make music especially Hebrew Israelite, is written in a way that is reaching out to the Most High, like a prayer. And so song is basically like bars written in a book. You understand? And the song itself would be the rhythm, it would be the entire melody, it would be everything all together. And then the song, which when you read it in the book itself, is the lyrics that are written. And so this song, or Mazamawar, basically, Mazamawar. Mazamawar means song. So Shayar, Mazamawar, La Asap, which is the author or writer of, or the song of Asap. It was written of Asap. You understand? So you have that. Then we have Alahayim, Alahayim, which is where we use the word Most High, or at least God, right? Song of Asap. Now, this is the beginning of the prayer. So to be more specific, let me see if I got a good marker today. That's a much better marker than before. At night. So it says La Asap Alahayim Al Damaya Laka Al Parash Wa Al Tashakwat Yahweh. You understand? Now, the word that we have at the end of this verse is Allah, but I prefer to use Yahweh because here in the Isupk, we do like to use the Most High's name in the most accurate form, which is the name that he showed unto Moses, which would be Yahweh, or he is, or he exists, which is what his name means, both visually and definition-wise. Now, coming in doing the first word, the first thing that we're doing is we're asking God to not stay silent about something. To not stay silent, where it says Shamya or Shamaya. It's almost similar to the word Shamai, silent, which means to listen. And a lot of times keeping silent is how you're allowed to listen. So it makes sense for Shamaya to be a word that's similar to the word listen, which means Shemai. Or if it's used in a stronger, sterner way, Shemai would also mean to be quiet. Shamaya is a similar word. So you can kind of interchange them because they sort of mean the same thing. Laka, al, there goes al again. Now, al and la'a are one and the same as well. When you hear the word la'a, it is actually these two characters flipped around, the la and then the a. Again, just a reminder for those if you're new, Hebrew is read from right to left. So I have the characters written in English above each section. So when you're reading it like this. When you're looking at the translation, you're not, you know what I'm saying? Because the characters themselves are written completely this direction. But of course, writing it in English, I have it sectioned off so that you can understand. All right. So again, let's go from the top. I'm going to read it. Shayar, Mazamawar, La Asat, Alahayim, Al, Damayala Ka, Al, Thakarash, Wa Al, Tashakwat, Yahweh. Again, the prayer begins by saying, don't keep silent. To not do hold your peace, meaning what? Don't hold your peace. Thakarash, meaning hold your peace, or to hold your peace. Thakarash. And then it says, Wa'al. Again, al is right here. Al. And so when this is actually grouped together, when I'm using the interlinear Bible, like we do during the Sabbath service, to break this down, this is actually grouped with this. So he's saying to not hold your peace and not be still. So wa'al tha shakwat. Al tha shakwat. To hold or to be is going to have a tha in front of it. So thakarash and thashakwat are similar because this little modifier right here means do, hold, or be, meaning to either continue with something or to exist as something, right? And so don't continue or exist as somebody that is peaceful. Don't continue or to exist to be somebody that is still. Shakwat would mean still, or when think of still meaning like somebody that's idle, meaning that they're not moving, that they're standing in one place. You understand? And then of course the Most High's name. So we're gonna read that again. Shayar Mazamawar La Asat Alahayim Al Damaya Laka Al Thakarash Wa Al Tashakwat Yahweh. Again. Oh, it's like not again. We're gonna go to the next verse, verse 2, right? Haya hana awayab yaka kaya hana awayab yaka. For behold, your enemies. Again, what do we say here? Possessive adjectives. Yaka means your or you. Also, a ka at the end, like if somebody says barak ka, they're saying bless you. Like when we say barak atah, that's a different way of saying the same thing. Because barak ka or my blessing or something like that could be added to the end of a phrase to modify it to give it a possessive adjective to mean something. So again, kaya hana awayab yaka. Here's now what I've done is I've actually underlined the root word in the phrase. So whenever you see that, and I also try to keep a consistency with underlining the word that is underlined here, so you can actually get more vocabulary. I usually tell folks when we're doing these classes, it is an excellent idea to take notes, but an even more excellent idea to take notes the way that I'm writing it here on the board, because you're going to be getting tons and tons of vocabulary naturally through these chunks of phrases. And so it's important that I actually show you awayab in this particular sentence structure, enemies, more than one enemy. Awayab yaka, your enemies. Yahamayawan, Yahamayawan, tumult is Hama, and I believe there's another character that's normally there, but in this sentence structure, Yahamayawan. And again, and those who hate you. Now here's something that's interesting. Wama shana ayaka. Wama shana ayaka. Wama shana ayaka. And those who hate you have lifted na sha'awa. Na sha'awa. Na sha'awa have lifted the head, ra'ash. The word head is ra'ash, which is interesting because Ra by itself actually is a word that means or a character that represents the head. So Ra'ash is just the continuation and completion of that word as a full form. But just Ra by itself actually does mean head. So this makes a lot of sense. We start seeing more examples of Hebrew written in a sentence that it starts to complete itself. Let me check the comments real quick just to see if there's any questions. Spot it. One second. Twit. There's green on board. Slop. Give me 1 second. Virtual background. Okay, nice. Wow, that's great. So, huge difference. Let's complete the review here. The next verse, verse 3. Ah, Imaka, Ya'ai Rayamwa, Sawada, Wayatha, Ya'ai Tazawa, Wayatha, Ya'ai Tazawa, and consulted together. Ah, Taza Pawan Yaka, your sheltered ones. Okay, your sheltered ones. So again, as we go through this, you'll notice that most of it is very familiar because this is what we read constantly every week when we do our Sabbath services. Psalm chapter 83 is one of our prayers in the school, and getting a chance to break this down is an awesome chance to really get a good understanding of what it is that we're saying, word for word. So again, Shayar, Mazamawar, La Asap, Alahayim, Al Damayalaka, Al Thacharash, Wa Al Thashakwat, Yahweh, Haya, Hana, Awayab Yaka, Yahamayawan, Wa Ma Shana Ya, Ashlaki, Wa Ma Shana Yaka, Nasha Al, Al, Aslaki, Ra'ash, Al Imaka, ya ira yamwa, sawada, wayata, ya ayatazawa, al tazapawanyaka. All right. So this is Psalm chapter 83's first three verses. Now, as we start to get more into this prayer, there's going to be a lot of names of nations and civilizations that are mentioned. Some of them are ones that go back to the original 18, I believe it's, 18 nations that the Most High ordained to have their own, what do you call it, dominion or their own inheritance on the earth. And then there are others that are added to that. Let's see. Right. I'm teaching my class right now. All right, so let's get that in. So again, Shayar, Mazamawar, La Asa, Alahayu, Al Damayalaka, Al Taharash, Wa Al Tashaqua, Yahweh, Hayat, Hana, Awayabyaka, Yahamayawan, Wamasha Na'a Yaka, Nasha'awa, Ra'ash, Imaka, Ya'ira Yamma, Sawada, Wayada, Ya'ai Tazawa, Al Tazapawan Yaka. You understand? Now we in the language now. So here's my board. If I need like a towel or something. Now, again, this is a chance to write what's on the board. If you get the chance to see it, to do it, I suggest writing it down. It's just one of those things that really benefit for you to have in your arsenal of study. Just kind of, sort of. What I usually do if the board is being erased for any particular reason is you can go back a minute or so and just screenshot if you have the capability. If you're using a cell phone to watch the class, screenshot what you see. Continuing with Psalm chapter 83, we're going to start again with verse 4 this time. I'm going to go ahead and get that here on the Bible Hub app. Let's see. So, 83 and verse 4. Now, this is going to take quite a bit of time to write it down. You understand? But being able to break it down just like how we do when we read it is, again, it's invaluable. Verse 4 is, again, Abagada. When you go through the characters in the alphabet, the first 10 especially, are going to be the outline of the numerical system. So Da is going to represent the fourth character or the fourth verse. Now we got Amarwa, Lakawa. That's terrible. Damn. Lakawa, Warnaka Yadam. Let's start with that. Wa na ka Yadam. Warnaka Yadam. Amarwa. Prepositions, possessive adjectives. When we see a possessive adjective of wa, that's a possessive adjective, meaning at the end of the character, not at the beginning. Because when we say like wa saranyo, wa quadrasayanyo, like when we're adding something in a series of things that are being mentioned, that's done at the beginning of the character set. But when it's done at the end, it means they or those. All right. So the first the first word here is amar, means to say. To say. So when it says this, it's saying they say or they said. They said or they have said. You understand? Amarwa. Lakawa means come. Lakawa. Root word here is halak. Halak. Lakawa. All right, Lakawa. When a kak yadam, this is a long one, but kak and then da. Kak and then da. This means to hide, to conceal, to cut off. To hide, to cut off. But we have some modifiers in front of us. And let cut them off, yes. So it's saying, and let us cut them off. And let us cut off. In this particular sense, them off. Now, how do we know that it's saying that again? They, them, those are all prepositions. So again, we're using the same phrases here, where it's saying ma as a possessive adjective means them. So now we have that modifier added into that word. And a lot of it too is the repetition of seeing it written that way so that you can understand how it modifies the root word, which there are other rules that are going to break down why it's done in a certain way. Sometimes there are characters that are implemented in between characters of the root word. Sometimes there are letters that are implemented at the beginning or the end of the root word. And those are rules that we'll pick up as we continue to go. And it says, Amarawa, Lakawa, Wanakak Yadam. They said, or they have said, come and let us cut them off. We need to separate this so that we're not confused here. And let us cut them off. From being a nation. The interesting thing here is the word nation, which is Gawaya. Gawaya, or nations is Gawayam. Gawayam. And let us cut them off from being a nation. So now it's saying Ma Gawaya. Magali. Magali. Magala. Yeah. Magali. Which means from a nation or from being a nation. A nation. This A right here is actually just to pinpoint the fact that we're just using one nation in this particular saying. Galiyam, which would mean nations, we're only saying one nation. Cut them off from being a nation. Again, this is the prayer, and in this prayer that's being asked of the Most High is for him to not keep silent, to not stay still, not hold his peace, because he's mentioning that the Most High's enemies have basically done exactly what they've been doing behind closed doors for generations now. Getting behind closed doors, finding ways to cut off Israel from being a nation. One of the ways that they've done that is, of course, giving us the bywords of being Hispanic, to be Puerto Rican, to be Dominican, to be African American. Anything that separates us from being the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel is a part of this scripture coming to pass. Not knowing which tribe you come from is a result of a prophecy being fulfilled that we're reading about right here. And of course, the curses that were given to Israel that were mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 28 and other chapters that talk about our transgressions and what led to over time. So this is exactly what has happened, and this is exactly what we're reading. This is why the Bible is correct, because it's telling you things that have happened already before it happened, even further in the past, and then things that haven't happened yet and things that are happening now. So the Bible is damn near like a time machine because it's able to actually portray a visual understanding of what's going on at all times for those that are learned enough to understand. Amarawa, Lakawa, Wanakakidam, Magalia, Wala'a, Wala'a, and no. This is an easy one. Wala'a. Wala'a. And it's quite simple because we use this word all the time. La'a. Root word. No. This is and no. Wa. Preposition. And no. So that's a pretty simple one. Gawaya. This is a root word here. This is the root word here. This is the root word here. And this is the root word here. All vocabulary words can be added. If you have any particular, if you want to know the specific vocabulary word to any of these, when you look at this in the interlinear version, there is a number at the top of each phrase that is the Strong's concordance number that gives you the root word. And that's something that I always refer to when I'm actually going through these lectures to show what root word is being modified to become the phrases that we're seeing in the prayer. So again, the first precept within the fourth verse, Amarawa, Lakawa, Wanatak Yadam, Magalia, Wala'a. I believe it's Yadishun. Let me see. No, Yazakar. I might be able to fit it over here. More room the better. Ya, Za, Ka, and then Ra. Yazakar. Yazakar. Root word here is Zakar, which means to remember. To remember. Zakar. Right here. So it literally translates to that may be remembered. When we read it in English, it may say something along the lines of no more in remembrance. Same thing, just structured different. But it literally saying they said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation and know that may be remembered, or nothing to be remembered of them. Which is what essentially cutting someone off is, because you're trying to erase their remembrance from history. And that is essentially what cuts them off, because not only would they exist anymore, or at least in a certain sense, not be remembered. That's what has happened to Israel. It hasn't been that Israel was extinct. It is that we don't remember who we are, which we know that to be true, because most Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans today don't actually walking around professing themselves to be a Jew or having any kind of affiliation with their culture. You got all these Israelites that are going to be, worshiping a Christmas tree next Wednesday, which is a problem, because it, again, is a fulfillment of this prophecy happening, this song happening. We call it a prophecy because, Israel prophesies through music all the time. It's just that this particular song was written down in the Bible, and that's how we know that these are things that can pertain to the future. So you could basically say that these bars were way ahead of its time. Again, Amarawa, Lakawa, Wanakach Yadam, Magalia, Wala'a, Yazakar, Shema. I believe Shema. Verse 4. Oh, Sham, Shama. Yeah, that makes sense. Sham. Sham. Yashar. Yashar. I walked. I would die. Boom. The name. And that's actually the root word itself is just Sham. Sham means name. The name. Israel. Yashar Allah, that's the whole thing. So it is the root word itself. And then I would die. I would die means more. I would die. And that's the whole thing too. More. So what's so different about this than English? It's that instead of saying the name Israel no more, it's actually putting the and no at the beginning of the phrase. So from being a nation, know that they need to remember the name Israel anymore. Think of it like that. Anymore could be another way to look at this particular group right here. Anymore, or just more by itself. That would be the end of verse 4. So the end of verse 4 will look like that. See how much time I have. I want to try to do at least 3 verses, but 3 verses get pretty crazy pretty quick. Let's see here. Kaya. It was Kaya again. Kaya. 4. Kaya. No, I tells me why. That's exactly that. All right. Nah. Well, I tells me why. No, I tells me why. Blah blah. Kaya. Let's get that. Yeah, Kaya. Kaya. Aliyah. Select it. Aliyah. Aliyah. Barayat. 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 Notice how I'm using the connectors. If it's joined to another character, it connects them both. If it's pronounced by itself, you pronounce the character by itself. Yashar Allah, not Yasharah Allah. Yashar Allah. And again, this is going to take time for Israel to really get the hang of, because when we're reading it during the Sabbath service, brothers may just start off by trying to just pronounce all the characters, which we let slide because they're learning the language still. It may take years for them to get that right. But at any given time, you can actually hit the number that's above each phrase, and it tells you the root word in that section, which gives you a better idea of which words connect. Because the main rule of thumb, and this isn't for every character or phrase in Hebrew, but a safe bet is, especially if there's like 3 characters, that the last 2 are connected. But again, it gives you a better idea of what the root word is, so that you know how to pronounce some of the phrases, and then you can figure out the rest from there. And through repetition and through, of course, practicing the way that we have our priesthood put us together, you get a better understanding of how these words come out. Now, for lo, I believe it says, let's see, for they have consulted together. Yeah, I'm writing out a little more. But they have consulted together. This is a lot right here. So what is the root word here? Itazah. Yeah, itazah, which is to advise, to consult. So the root word here is consult, consulted. Yeah, itazah. Na wa'ai tazawa. Na wa'ai tazawa. Laba, the word laba, which is this one right here, is with consent. With consent. Get these mixed up. This is kind of heavy because this says right here, laba. We use the word consent in the translation of English, but the word laba literally means the heart, the intellect, the will. And so when it says with consent, the next character that's used here is yakadwa, which means of one. The word achad means one, so yakadwa means of one. Yakadwa. The root word is, of course, yakad, which means united as one. So instead of it, think of this particular one that being the word achad, which is like in our number system, achad, shenya, shalash, arba, kamash, that sort of thing. Don't think of it like that. Think of it like the word unity, which means brought together as one. So instead of it being a literal word that means the number system, think of it a word that means unified together. And so the way that you would put that together is yachad. I believe it's yachad. Let's see. Yeah, yachad. It's these three right here of one or of unity. So it would be correct to put unity there as well. For they have consulted together with consent of one. Or they have consulted together with consent of one mind, one heart, one will, one intellect. Those are the definitions of yachad. They have consulted together of unification, meaning they all agree on the same thing. You understand? And so now, going into the next one, al-yaka, to concern or to be above. Al. That is this one. And we've been using that word al quite a few times already. Al yaka. There's a yaka again, meaning your concern. Now, in the translation here, it's against you. Dang, I keep using the wrong one. If I were to translate it directly, it would be saying your concern. But they have consulted together with one consent. They have consulted together with the consent of one concerning you. I might just write that because that's what it literally translates to. Hold on. This gives us the, like I said, I like breaking down the scriptures in the Lashawan Qadash because you get the Ebonic definitions that Israel would use in a specific statement. So where it says your, let's see, it says against you, but it says your concern or against. Concerning you, basically, or against you. Now it says bar yath. Phrase bar yath means a confederacy. Bar yath is the entire thing, so it actually means covenant or confederacy. Confederacy, bar yath, a compact. Damn, that's heavy. A pact. This is it's like reading it for the first time when we see it like this. So, because it's talking about, let me put it the way that it says it, all right? Because this Hebrew is really breaking it down in a real heavy way to understand just what it is saying, how heavy it is that they say it like that. Concerning you. A pact or covenant. But they have consulted together with the consent of one, meaning the consent, unity, concerning you, meaning they have one mind, of one consent, of one mind, concerning you, a pact against Israel, a pact against the Most High, a contract. It's like, ain't no different than like if you watch a movie and like say for instance John Wick or something, and then they send out a message to all the assassins in the city, and they say this is a contract that you'll be rewarded if you fulfill this covenant of attacking and successfully eliminating this particular individual. And so it's talking about how they have said, now before we got to here in the verse 3, it says that we're talking about the Lord's enemies. They said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, and not that they may be remembered the name of Israel anymore. For they have consulted together with the consent of unity concerning you a pact or covenant. So you have to understand exactly what that's saying. Like when we read it in English and it says, with one consent against you, that this isn't just some small agreement. This is like that contract. It's like it's written, it's set in stone that this is exactly what they set out to do behind closed doors. You know, conspiracy theorists, they have phrases they use for the think tanks that run things behind closed doors. They call them secret societies. They call them, you know, all types of things. But biblically speaking, conglomeration between the nations that are trying to hold on to their power because they understand that when Israel was united as a nation, they did not have influence over the earth. They did not have dominion or sovereignty over the earth. When we are broken down and we no longer know our name, and we don't call to the Most High, and we don't speak our own language, and we don't come back to our heritage, that's how they retain their power. That's why you have Russia and NATO and China and all these different nations that have a seat at the table. Because when Israel is in power, ain't nobody going to have a seat at the table. But they understood very well that as long as they can keep us from knowing our culture, that they have a chance of retaining their influence on the earth. Our God is the entire group. Our God. You understand? There's more on that. Oh, finishing this verse. Yakarathwa. Let's see if that's how it's written. It should be how it's written. That's exactly how it's written. Most are in Christ. Yakarathwa. 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 They formed. There's the possessive adjective they again. So what is the root word here? H3772, karath. Boom, there it is, y'all, right there. It means they consumed a covenant to covenant. There. We'll use the definition they used for the translation. They formed a covenant. There it goes, to make a covenant. Bar yath. Karath. Y'all understand? A pact, a covenant. Karath means to make a covenant or to form. That's and then of course you have the law right here. I need to get the preposition of Yah, but it says they formed. Karathwa. Yeah, Karathwa. That's the end of verse 4. No, 5? No, 4. Yeah, that's verse 5. So let's read what we got so far. Amarwa, Wakawa, Wanakakidon, Magalia, Wala'a, Yazakar, Sham Yasha'ala, Iwada, Kaya, Na Wa'ai Tazawa, Laba, Yakadwa, Alika, Baryath, Yakarathwa. And again, what we just read, they said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation and know that they may remember the name of Israel anymore. For they have consulted together with the consent of unity concerning you a pact they formed. So this is exactly what it's saying when we read it in the Hebrew, because in the Hebrew it says, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee. Now we get to have a little bit of fun here, because, and this is my definition of fun, because as an officer in the UPK, there's a lot of names on here that are on the test. That's all I'm going to say. Why? Da ha wa. Abagada ha wa. And then za will be the next verse. So da means 4, ha means 5, wa means 6. Sidebar. People eat those Monster energy drinks, but you know what's made a lot of people point out, especially conspiracy theorists? Wa looks like this in the ancient Hebrew, but in the Assyrian, it looks like this. And when you look at the Monster energy drink, you have 3 of these put together. It looks just like that. Monster energy is 3 Ys. So people are kind of tripping out because they see that and like, oh, wait, doesn't that mean 666? That's like conspiracy stuff. Yeah, I ain't really worried about that. But just knowing Hebrew is something that at least gives you an understanding of that. I don't know who owns Monster, but if it is fake Jews that own it, well then that's not a surprise. Not at all. Verse 6. Listen. I love this. This is fun. Now, again, I'm giving you the direct translation of the word, not necessarily the English translation. The reason why I like that is because this gives us a chance to understand the language better, to know more definitions of those words, to have an even deeper understanding. Ahalia. Let me see. Yeah, Ahalia. 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 Adawam. Not Adawan, but Adawam. Adawam. Make sure that's separated. Why Yashamayala? Why Yashamayal Yum? That's a good one. Why Ya Sha Ma Shamai Al. That's a heck of a phrase right there. What is this saying? Yasha my Allah. That right there. You know what? Let me get there. Let me just put the connectors. Wa Yasha my Al Aliyam. technically, because Yashamai Allah is how that's pronounced. It's not Yashamai Allah. So it should say Yashamai Allah. How does it say it like that? It should say Allah, yeah. That is what it said. Okay, most of the verse. All right, Yashamai Allah. Mawa Abba. Can't forget about Mawa Abba. Carl, give me a second. You say the resolution was off? Let me see. Sometimes if I'm standing in front of the screen, it might go blurry, but then it may automatically fit. So just keep that in mind. Man, you can actually record. It's saying let you record or stream in 4K. It's awesome. Okay. I reset it, but that's about as good as it's going to get. You might have to try to zoom in a little bit. We only got a few minutes left. We gonna end it after this verse, but I'm gonna break this verse down. Mawa Abba. Again, these classes, there's a lot going on. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to overwhelm Israel. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to coach Israel, not overwhelm them. Mawa Abba. Mawa Abba. Wahagarian. Wahagar. Yeah. Wahagar. Let's see. Let's break this down. The tents and tabernacles, but tents or houses. Think of tent, it means house. Of Edom. A major player in the Bible, not exactly the good guy, you know what I'm saying? And the Ishmaelites. Moab. There's your Xi Jinping right there. The Hagarenes. Gabal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines, the inhabitants of Tyre, right? Ashur also is joined to them. They have helped the children a lot. Salah, do unto them and unto the Midianite, as to Sisera. I ain't trying to skip ahead. But that's gonna be the next class. We're gonna start getting into more of these nations. But let's finish the class off by covering these first ones that are mentioned. The tents. So the word ahal, boom, these right here. Ahal. The tents. Tent. The word literally means tent or meaning housing or dwelling or house. So when it says the tabernacles of Edom in English, it also is saying the house of Edom or the tents of Edom. Does that make sense? It's like the family tree, you know. If you think of a tent or think of a teepee, it's like the entirety of the family within it. So it's saying the tents of Edom and Agawam with an M at the end. It's Edom. There's a reason why that's the first one that's mentioned. Psalm chapter 83 goes through this to talk about God's enemies, that they disrespect the Most High, that they come together with one consent to make a pact that they form against Israel to keep Israel from being remembered. It's the first nation that's mentioned, which means what? They're the ones that spearheaded this idea. Why? Because they have had animosity against Israel for as long as we can remember. Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, that rivalry between Jacob and Esau has become a rivalry between Israel and Edom and has evolved over generations into the biblical battle that has been going on for multiple millennia at this point. Now we have a heck of a breakdown here because it says, Wayashamayala. Wayashamayala Yam. Salaki. Wayashamayala. So Yashamayala is the root word for Ishmaelite. Ishmaelite without the S there, because Yam is added at the end to make it plural. Wa is at the beginning. Technically, there's a ha missing, but I'm going to ignore that. Because technically, it should say and Ishmaelites. If we're going to say Wa Yashamayala. If it's going to say and the Ishmaelites, then if you want to be completely correct, it'll be Wa ha Yashamayala. So again, Wa means and, Yashamayala means Ishmael, or the Arabs, which would include Iranians, Syrians, Middle Easterns, Arabics. You understand? Those that spoke the Arabic language in their original. They were also Shemitic. They also used to speak Hebrew, which is why some of their words, like Allah, which means power, is carried over into their language. Words like Abba, which means father, Amma, which means mother. A lot of that does echo in their culture too. But they are also ones that have a bit of an animosity because they resulted from a nation that the Most High did not actually choose for the entirety of the world as their inheritance. So, of course, they would get along with Edom pretty well because they have a bone to pick with the seed of Abraham going through Isaac and Jacob. So, just like how Edom is a rival to Israel, Ishmael was a rival to Israel's father, Isaac. And so their congruence is directly tied together. Their confederacy is the pinnacle of this pact that was formed, which is why the people that rule the earth right now are the rich Arabs and the Edomites that are rich. The Arabs that own all Dubai and Syria and Abu Dhabi and, you know what I'm saying, the oils and all that stuff, Ishmaelites. The ones that rule the military forces of the world, from Great Britain to Europe, you know what I'm saying, even Russia, Edom, which are God's enemies. You have to understand that because that is historical fact. Can't be disputed against. Then you got Moab over here. Can't forget Moab. The entire thing is Moab. That's the Chinese. The Chinese have had more influence than the Japanese on a world scale. They have the largest economy, the largest population. They technically, well, because they're what do you call it? They're not democratic. They're what's the word? Totalitarian or what was it? Communist Party of China has enslaved their own citizens to becoming a part of the economic machine that is China. And so these three countries work closely together economically to gain much influence over the world. And of course, there are fights between them, right? That's why Edom fights with Ishmael and Edom is plexed with Moab in the South China Sea, but Edom is also still working with Moab, kinfolk Ammon, who's Japanese, and I believe Taiwanese and South Koreans. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of drama. What we're seeing is that this confederacy is actually falling apart in real time now. But originally, they had a strong pact amongst each other, the ones that were in leadership. Then you have the last one, the Hagarites, derived from Hagar, which at least that's what the word derives from, which is the Egyptian maidservant of Sarah, mother of Ishmael. So what is this saying? This is kind of like a close relative of the Ishmaelites. More so the ones that would, I want to say in the land of Egypt, but I don't want to. I know the Egyptian, she was sent back to Egypt. So the Hagarenes, and I believe it's Hagar. Hagar. Now, it doesn't say Hagaria young, they just add the ma at the end to make it plural. So that's something I want to mention. Wa Hagarium. They just added at the end to make it plural. So instead of it saying Hagaria young, they just add the ma. Now it's plural. So that's an exception to the rule that we see regarding yam and yam when grouping things together. I'm just going off the example. So let's more or less break down what we have so far. And hopefully the screen fixed. Let me make sure the screen's sharp before I do this. I'll try to if I get the camera a little bit closer for this last moment, that may help. Let me see. Yeah, that's much better. I'm gonna have to turn it a little. So we got a little bit of the scripture on the left side of the screen. I don't want to block that. That should be good. Again, this is going to sound exactly how it does sound when we read it for the Sabbath service. But you're seeing it visually in the Lashawan Qadash, and that's what makes it so heavy, because now you're seeing it word for word with the English there to help you understand what these phrases are saying. The sentence structure, the root words, the vocabulary, we're putting it all together. We're re-engineering our language back together on the fly too, because I'm reading it in the modern Hebrew, but I'm writing it on the board in the ancient Hebrew with the ancient Hebrew dialect. Okay, so this is pretty revolutionary when you think about it, because language itself is such a strong weapon. If you can take a people and take their language away from them and force your language on them, you are able to control their culture, which means you are able to control their mind, the things that they want, their purposes in life. Language is a weapon. So the Lashawan Qadash class is a very powerful class because it's giving you your weapon back. Mind you, when you pray in the ancient Hebrew, it has more power behind it than it is when you say it in English. This is what the Bible says. So when we say these words, we have to understand it's not just a normal prayer. This is the ancient Hebrew prayer. Amarawa, Lakawa, Wanakakiyadam, Magalia, Wala'a, Yazakar, Sham Yasharala, Iwada, Kaya, Nawai Tazawa, Laba, Yakadwa, Alyaka, Barya, Yakaratwa, Ahalia, Adawam, Wayashmaalia, Mawaaba, Wakagaria. And that we're gonna let me just read in English. They have said, "Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, and know that they may be remembered the name Israel anymore, or not that they should remember themselves anymore. For they have consulted together with consent of unity concerning you a pact they formed. The tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites, Moab and the Hagarites, the so-called white people, and the Arabs, the Chinese, and some derivative of the Egyptians that kind of ties with Ishmael, which is why people that are in Egypt now, there's a lot of mixing going on. There's people from Africa, there's people from the Middle East, the Hagarites, more or less, derived from Hagar, the Egyptian woman that was the mother of the Ishmaelites. So there's a kindred there between them. And then there's other examples further down the line that may have ties with Edom, Moab, all these other ones. So there's branches out. But the 18 nations specifically, you're going to see that a lot of them are on this list of the Confederacy against Israel to keep us from knowing our name. And that's why this is so heavy about us being who we are. Because being Israelites, we are righteous in our captivity. And we set ourselves an example that can't be refuted against, because while we are keeping the laws of the land and being, you could say, model citizens, we're not doing drugs, we're not doing any crimes, we're not inciting any violence. What we are inciting is righteousness. And that is actually a weapon that is actually bringing all these nations to their knees, because they are starting to feel the prophecies concerning their end. Just like how all of these prophecies that concerned our end came to pass, all of the things that are said in this prayer are also happening to them. Like when we talk about how, putting fire on them, make them like a wheel as a stubble before the wind, as a fire burning through wood. We're talking about destruction. So of course these things are going to happen to them, just like how them coming together, making a pact, forming a confederacy against Israel has happened and has worked for them. So continuing, this is part 2. We're going to have a part 3 very soon, next week, next Friday. Continuing the breakdown of Psalm chapter 83 in the Lashawan Qadash. This is it's been a privilege of mine to deep dive into what is considered our longest prayer, and so getting a breakdown of one of our pinnacle prayers in its original form is humbling for me to be a part of, and I'm glad to of course put in my break, helping brothers and sisters out there understand the finer details, the vocabulary, the sentence structure, the phrase structure on how these things come together, so that we can visually see it and spiritually understand it at a deeper state. And with that, again, this is the Isupk. It started out at 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, in 1969. Under Commanding General Yohanan, we're here to teach the truth of the Bible to so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians are the real Israelites of the Scriptures. And of course, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this class, I'm going to make sure to put it on a playlist and line it up with the previous class so that we have a playlist on our channel that you can go back and get the full breakdown of the Scriptures, so that we can have the whole thing at your disposal for whenever you need to refresh your memory. And with that, shalom.